to Showdown. I'm Mark Kaysen, Stephanie Harmon alongside, and
Hey, everybody.
we have a lot of interesting things to talk about today, Steph. At the moment, I'm guessing that I really don't have anybody showing up here, although I've given out the link to some people, and if someone shows, they show. But we have all kinds of things going on later in the week and next week. And yet, on the other hand, as I was saying to Joe before we walked into the studio here, there's some days I like it when I don't have anybody in my way. And this is one of those days, so we get to just do this ourselves. Um,
Okay.
I do want to mention at the outset that our show is brought to you by, firstly, Wendy's, which is a
Yep.
great place to get food, and the
hmm
St. Louis Suit Company, which is a great place to get dressed up like I do with my suit and tie, especially my $5 ties, which Donald Trump would have sold for $50, and in the end they would have choked you. But that's a thing there. And then of course Jules on Hampton, and that's Al, who is at 4506 Hampton, and we'll have more to say about them as we get going on the show. I'll tell you what I want to talk about at the beginning here, Steph, and
okay.
I'm guessing that you'll probably have some strong feelings about this, and that is reproductive health.
Mm.
You know,
Okay.
reproductive health care is, I mean, just by the name, it's obviously important to women. Now,
hmm
it's important to men because they're connected with their women, but reproductive health care is something that the country really hasn't used as a name up until now. And I'm hoping that more and more this will catch on and the people will stop saying abortion. Because, in the first place, as I've often said, I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, I hope a bunch of people have an abortion today. That is ridiculous. I
The
mean, no,
doctors who give them do.
yeah, well, yeah, if you need that, that's another story. Although
Right.
I can say if you're looking to make some money in those surgery situations, my experience tells me that you might look at knee replacement surgery because the knee replacement surgery guys get some big bucks per knee. I'm just telling you. And there's no
yeah.
controversy either. I mean, but as far as reproductive health care service, uh,
hmm
I think that's what really we ought to be talking about. And I think, we can consider a couple of ways that this is an issue. Number one, the women who have recently gotten some publicity that they would not want for starting to bleed out in a way that was extremely dangerous. And doctors were afraid to stand up and help them out of the fear that somebody would say, that guy is giving an abortion.
hmm
So, because they weren't. They weren't. They were just trying to help these women who were in serious medical breakdown. So, that's number one. The second thing is that as a country, we probably would not be hurting anybody if we said, let's find ways to encourage people not to have abortions. We could do that. And one way would be to make sure that people aren't getting pregnant when they don't want to be pregnant. So,
Hmm.
that
Well,
would solve. Yeah, go ahead.
uh, when you say people don't get pregnant when they don't want to get pregnant, you have to understand that those majority are still what we consider children and young adults. You know,
Absolutely.
they're the means out here to not get pregnant are out here. Um, but you have I wouldn't say uneducated, but I would say that you have young people who are out here trying to do adult things and end up not understanding that there are adult consequences behind it and
Yeah,
adult responsibilities behind it. And then that's
absolutely.
when you have other issues following right behind that. So,
Absolutely.
right, I think it's a means again that we go back to the fact of is to be educated about what you need done. I don't know if they still have those classes. Do they still have those classes in school where they talk
Well,
about?
well, they do. They
Okay.
certainly do in public schools. Although I know it's being challenged in many areas, but I think that this is the question: are we going to live in an era that's 200 years ago, or are we going to live in 2024? And in 2024, people should be getting all the information they need so that they can make the proper choices that they want to make in their lives. Now,
Yeah.
that's there's I don't think there's any argument with that. I don't
There's
think
not any
anybody.
argument with that at all, but you have to understand that again, we're talking about young adults who are seeing sex everywhere. They're seeing sex on TV, just regular, sitcoms and regular movies, and they're seeing it in videos, and it's everywhere. So, they want to be a part of that. But again, when they're a part of that, they have responsibilities that they're not ready for.
Yeah. Well, there's no question about it, and I certainly don't have all the answers to lots of things, but I will say this: we need, and we have been doing it actually. We need to continually bring down the number of abortions year by year by year. And we're actually doing that right now, Steph. I mean, it's happening.
Well,
So,
they brought it down because they basically sanctioned the fact that you can't have an abortion now. So let's discuss that. I don't know if the government has a right to make a say on what I'm going to do with my body.
yeah,
This is my body. This is my person. So they have now, the government has now stepped in and said, oh no, when you get this far along, you can't have an abortion. Hmm.
yeah.
So
Well,
again, it goes back to women's rights. This is, my right as a woman to do what I want to do with my body. And now
right,
again, they're telling us we can't do that.
right. Well, and my response to this is that nobody has to be out here fighting to get abortions for women, because the answer is to find ways to reduce abortion in the country first. Secondly, to educate people so that they can make the best decisions that they can make in their lives when it comes to reproductive health care. And then finally, to make sure that we separate out all of the crazy arguing from the reproductive health service that we really want to give people so that they don't miss out on the health care that they deserve when someone else thinks that there's another intention involved. And really, as you pointed out, it's none of anybody's business. But all I'm saying is that what we really need to do is just make sure that we give people the opportunity to have the healthiest decisions that they can make. And certainly the one thing that we don't want is we don't want, for example, to take something like in vitro fertilization, which is aimed at trying to increase the number of children, and wipe it out because somebody thinks that there's some kind of a decision being made that, frankly, they've misunderstood. They apparently missed that day when they went to medical school because they didn't go to medical school, and they just don't know what they're talking about. And let me add one final part to this, and this is my biggest concern. Although, now unfortunately we have this other concern of women who are bleeding out and not being taken care of. That's horrible. But the next thing is why, and this doesn't even matter what your income level is. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are. Black women in this country are 3 times more likely to die in pregnancy than white women. And if we don't stop that, we are criminals ourselves.
Agreed. I agree on everything you said. I want to channel back a little bit. You talking about, women bleeding out. I'm trying to think of the word, skeptical about the morning after pill. I have literally seen myself, young women, come into stores and buy that morning after pill back to back to back.
Okay.
It's like, okay, this is not a form of, protection that you go and get this pill. That's not the reason for it. But and I'm like, what do they know about this medication that ultimately will abort or prevent? It's not a prevention. It's to abort a possible child if it's there, or a fetus.
Right.
And you're constantly doing this. So, I have yet to hear anyone discuss what that would do to a woman's body when she gets to the point she does want to have children.
Yeah. Well, here's one thing that Michael just wrote on Facebook, and he said that that parenting has a huge impact on whether a child gets pregnant or not. And honestly, I agree.
I agree and disagree.
Yeah, because let me also add, Michael's my cousin, but go ahead.
I agree and disagree because yes, thank God I had a mom that was a nurse. She put it in your face and told you everything. She didn't short step on anything. So, we were all educated at a very young age on what to do, what not to do, and so on and so forth. But I'm also gonna say this: we were all teenagers at some point in time, and regardless on what our parents said no to, even if we had good parents, we would go and find a way. And kids go and find a way. So you can tell them and educate them as much as you want to, but do believe if their friends are doing it, they're gonna want to do it too, and they're gonna find a way to do it. So ultimately, I see what you're saying about good parenting, but you can have the best parents in the world, and that does not mean that your teenager will not get pregnant.
Yeah. Well, I'm again going to say that the last thing that I want to see is our country arguing over the word abortion. I mean, I want to see that be an issue that, pro-life people can say no to it. And listen, I want to say this. I believe that I'm pro-life. But the problem is you when it starts to get into the political arena, then it's a problem. Because then you're talking about pro-life meaning something else. I, for example, don't want to see the death penalty. I, for example, want to see people get all the medical technology possible in order to be able to have children.
Right.
I mean, and I want to make sure that women have the ability to get the health care that they need if they get into trouble, so that they can have children the next time. Because
but we got to remember there's 2 kinds of abortions. You had a spontaneous abortion where your body just aborts the child. Then you have the induced abortion where you actually go and get an abortion. So um, by a doctor. So they're trying to say that when the child gets a certain gestational age, then you can't determine on having an abortion at that time. The government is saying, I'm stepping in and I'm saying, no, you need to have that child. Now, the thing about it is that, again, we're going to talk about health care because I see this every day. In the benefits outlined on many of these insurances, they don't even cover the abortions uh, without proof that that child is going to cause some kind of health issue to the mother. So even if the child comes out genetically imbalanced or whatever, they're still are saying you have to have this child. And it's like, what about me making the choice on me mentally not being able to deal with a child like that? Then you have to deal with the fact that you have now brought birth a child into this world that you are not mentally, emotionally or financially able to take care of. And then you have these mothers out here who are now not only killing children, but killing themselves as well.
Yeah. Well, one thing we can't do, and I'm no doctor, so obviously I can't do any of this, but
Hmm.
we can't get into a family's individual problem and force them to make decisions one way or the other. I mean, we can't do it, and we shouldn't do it, and we're not
I
going
agree.
to, and we're not going to do it. But one thing we can do is that we can educate people in a way to help them to never need to have an abortion. And then we can also get this word abortion out of our conversation and get to where we really need to be, which is providing every single family in America with reproductive health care so that they can have children and that they can do it their way, when they want, how they want, and they can do it in a way that will eventually, I believe, wipe out this entire conversation. Because again, Steph, the numbers are coming down. They've been coming down year after year after year. So rather than sit here and fight over something that we can eventually see go away, the more educated our society is, I mean, I think it's essential that we make certain that these women that are trying to get pregnant, that they get all the help they can get so that they can get pregnant, and the women who don't want to get pregnant can have enough educational backup so that they know how to avoid getting pregnant if they don't want to be. And now I didn't say it's going to be easy to get there, but I'm saying that we can stop fighting with each other if we provide education and we provide health care, and then find a way to make sure that and this is, like I say, it's the crime of all. Why would a black mother be 3 times more likely to lose their child and die than a white mother? Why? It's just wrong.
It's wrong, but you have to understand as well is that, you know, some of I would love to see the age range, the numbers in regards to how old and where we are with the age range on those African American females that are dying
Yeah, I hear
because
this all the way across the spectrum. I mean, that's what I've read. I've read
okay,
articles in the Atlantic. I've read articles in the Wall Street Journal, in the New York Times, and in the Washington Post as well. I mean, everywhere. And they
So the
say,
statistics are just all over the place. And the reason
yeah,
why I'm asking that is because you find majority of the under the age, I'm gonna say under the age of 25, African American females who, especially when they're in high school, they're still young, to where they have access to the health care. They are, and even if they low income, they have Medicaid. They have access to all of those means that you're talking about, but they don't reach out to go get it.
yeah,
It's almost like a taboo thing. I can't tell my mom I'm pregnant. I don't want nobody to know I'm pregnant. You have the issue, what I call the Jerry Springer issues, to where it's like, okay, who is the father?
yeah,
We still have a lot of that going on. They thought it was a joke, but it's reality. It's big reality today. You have a lot of children out here who don't know who their fathers are and
yeah,
who they think their father is not. So you have so many other underlying issues when it comes to African Americans getting pregnant. But understand also, I'm not saying that this is just African American females that have those issues. Those issues go straight across the board at all races. But I'm assuming that a lot of that could be from that fact that they don't want to tell. They don't want anyone to know. And when they do know, they're so far gone to get that medical treatment that at that point it could have any other kind of issues that come along.
yeah. Unfortunately, it's wealthy black women too. That's the problem. This is definitely a problem that's tied to racism and what we know as systemic racism, because clearly, if you're a wealthy black woman and you have
Hmm.
access to all the health care in the world, the answer is they are still part of this three times the white women's death rate. And that is ridiculous. Shouldn't be
I agree.
happening. Yeah, should not be happening.
I agree.
Anyway, switching gears only slightly,
Okay.
because I mean it's really a big switch, but in a way it's not, and that is to Fonnie Willis's uh, uh, affair with Nathan Wade. but here's the thing. I don't know if you've watched that closely today, but I certainly have, and I can tell you that the divorce attorney who told the Trump people that Wade and Willis had this relationship before he was hired by that department has now said today he has no idea. He said I made it up. He said I speculated. He said I don't know. He says I have no information as to whether they were together on any day or what they did. He said I just don't know. Period. He doesn't know. And I can tell you that the lawyers in all of this, that is the TV lawyers, the commentators, are all saying if this guy doesn't know, there's no way that you can kick out Fonnie Willis. And the problem is, of course, did Fonnie Willis lie on the stand? Because at this point, it almost looks like she didn't have to lie if she did. And the other side of that is, I don't think she did lie. And I don't hear the slightest evidence that she lied. Here's what they've got.
Okay.
They've got cell phone records that show that Nathan Wade and Fonnie Willis were at the same general vicinity in that part of town on certain days prior to the day that they admit their affair. And the problem is, so were thousands of other people. So the point is, they haven't the slightest evidence that they ever were together before the time that they admit that they were together. So, ultimately the judge is going to decide this. And actually the closing arguments are going to be on Friday. And then the judge is going to decide. He's probably going to write a decision as opposed to giving it on the bench, simply because he knows, according to what these attorneys are saying, he knows that he's going to be looked at very carefully. And as a result of that, he absolutely has to pin everything down that he's saying to be sure that he's saying exactly what he wants to say. So all of that means we might know the answer to this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. So that's going to be interesting. And poor Donald has got to be coming apart at the seams from all of this. And when I say that, let me add that there are some other very interesting developments in the other cases today. For example, Donald says,
Who cares? But go
well,
ahead.
that's right. He says that he doesn't want to put any money up because he's too rich to put up the money. He says his wealth is so great that the court should just say, don't worry about it. You can just go appeal this thing without a bond, without the cash. Now, I can tell you, Steph, it's not going to happen. The money is going to have to be put up. What it sounds to me,
Has he paid that other lady yet?
No, he hasn't paid anybody. And he never
So-
pays anybody. But here they're going to make him pay.
But the courts came back and told him that he had to pay her.
Yeah, he doesn't pay. He doesn't pay.
See, to me, at that given point in time, then he needs to go and they needed to lock him up. They should have gave him a certain amount of time to pay them individuals that he owed the money to. If he doesn't pay, then lock his little butt up.
Well, in
Make
this
an example.
In this case, what they're going to do is sort of better than that even. Mm-hmm. They are going to tell him, which they've given him the date. They're going to tell him, pay, or Letitia James is coming in to take his property, and she will do it. She will begin all the proper legal methods of taking his buildings, of taking.
Why not seize his accounts first?
Well, I don't know. Whatever she can do, she's going to do. She said, I want his buildings. So whatever she wants. But if he puts up the $500 million, end of conversation. But when he says, I'm too wealthy to put up that money, I have to laugh. Because
that's almost dangling in everybody's face, though. So that's how he's dangling that in everybody's face. But if you that dang on wealthy, then pay what you owe.
Well, the point is, I don't think he is. I don't think he's got any of that money. I think he's sweating beyond what anybody can imagine. I think he's got no money. I think he can't come up with it. I think no one wants to lend it to him because they realize that he's in a bad position because of what's going on with the courts, with the other cases. This guy's in trouble. And that's why he says, I'm too wealthy to put up a bond. I'm too wealthy to put up the money, the cash. Oh,
he's too wealthy in BS. That's what he's wealthy in.
I think that's very true, Steph. And I think we're going to get the satisfaction of finding out the extent to which he has truly lied to everyone over a very, very long period of time. So anyway, I think that's just an interesting development in terms of what's going on here. Now, he's got one other thing he wants. I mean, isn't it nice? All the things that he wants. He wants Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen to be prevented from testifying in his case.
Why? What he's scared about?
Well, it really, I mean, I know what he's afraid of. He's afraid that people are going to find out that he's done exactly what everybody says he's done, which is to attempt to hide from the public an affair using illegal business methods. And that's what he's accused of. He's not accused of just the illegal business methods. He's accused of trying to hide it from the public using those methods. And of course, Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen are the two people who can actually testify with regard to what he did. So naturally, he wants them to not be allowed to say anything. But the judge isn't going to go for that. That is,
and I agree, and they shouldn't, because at the end of the day, he's constantly saying, "I didn't do this, and I didn't do that, and that wasn't me." So, what are you afraid of? If you didn't do anything, what are you afraid of?
Well, what he's hoping is that by throwing all of these things up, that he can get appeals and different ways of reviewing information that will move the trials forward far enough so that he would, at least in his mind, have a chance of winning an election, which would then shut everything down, even on the state level, at least until he got out of the presidency. But I don't even need to say that, because this guy is not going to be president of anything except for, as I often say, I do believe he'll be president of the Prisoners Association. I think that's something that's something we can look forward to. Now, in addition to all of that, and I've mentioned this earlier in the week here, and that is this business down in Florida. This lady, Aileen Cannon, the judge down there, she's gotten herself into a lot of trouble. She's made decisions that were clearly wrong. And again, I'm no attorney, I'm no judge, but I listen to people that really do know what they're talking about. And she's made decisions that are well, in each case, they've been reversed. But the problem these attorneys are saying is that she's gone too much, too far, and that if she does the same thing on some of the requests that Donald has put in front of her now, that the 11th Circuit, which is where she comes from, is going to ask her to withdraw from this case, which is the best thing that could ever happen, because she has done everything she could to block this case from ever taking place in Florida. I mean, she's attempted to block for Trump. But again, the problem she's got is that you could
then at that point it's evidence that at that point it's evident that she's biased. So they should kick her out of there.
Yeah, at some point
you cannot be an honest, true judge at that point. You can't.
Yeah, at some point they will look at all of this and they'll say, too much. And when I say they, it's a bunch of judges who are very conservative and who are theoretically on Donald's side, but not practically, not truthfully. They're not on his side because they are for the law, despite the fact that they are maybe Donald Trump appointed judges, but they still support the law. Aileen Cannon, she's another story. She's for some reason going all the way down this path, and I just don't even know what that could be. I can't imagine, because when we talk about Donald and the Russians, I mean, we can come up with all kinds of theories as to what might be going on with why he's in business with the Russians, and I think he is. And if you read the 448 page Mueller report, you will know that he actually did business with the Russians that was illegal. But Bob Mueller said you can't prosecute him because we have a rule at the Justice Department that when you're the president, you cannot be prosecuted while you're in the office. It can be prosecuted afterwards, but nobody wants to even go after that because, first of all, it's hard to prove. And secondly, because the Mueller report has already been so widely discredited by Bill Barr, who said, which was a lie, he said on the day this came out, he said, this report has exonerated Donald Trump. Now, the fact is, the report said the opposite.
I was going to say that don't make any sense.
No, it said the opposite. The report said we have not exonerated Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
But Bill Barr said it, and he said it enough, and people accepted it because he said it. So, that's the world that we live in. Okay, listen, let's go back to our sponsors here for a minute, and let's talk about Wendy's.
Okay.
When it gets to be 5 o'clock, which, we're 20 minutes away from that, but when it gets to be 5 o'clock, I start to get hungry. I don't know. What time do you eat dinner, Steph?
About 6.
Okay. A lot of people like to eat a late dinner, 7, even 8 o'clock. I can't do that. I'm too hungry by then. I have to have dinner early. 5 o'clock, that's good. And we get out of here right now at 5. And that means I could just run down to Wendy's. So Wendy's is at 18,000 Chesterfield Airport Road, which is very close to our studios here. And again, at 18,000 Chesterfield Airport Road, you can get baby back ribs, onion rings, pizza, lots of different good food. And that's Wendy's. And they are good, great sponsors of our show, and we appreciate them. Mm-hmm. Now, let me talk about the St. Louis Suit Company. The St. Louis Suit Company is on the corner of Forsyth and Central in Clayton. And you can see every night that I am dressed well. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't know the first thing about colors. And no, I really don't. I really don't. And the people at the suit company, they give me ties that match certain things that I have, and they tell me what I can wear and what works, and I do it. I follow their instructions because I am colorblind for sure. I mean, I can't tell the difference between green and brown. I can't tell the difference between blue and purple. I've got problems. But at the St. Louis Suit Company, they even help you with the color matching. So check them out. Their ties are silk for $5. If you can find that anywhere, you better go buy it because believe me, you can't. These are great ties, great prices, and I love a really nice tie. That's the St. Louis Suit Company, Forsyth and Central in Clayton.
Awesome.
So, okay, finally, let's talk about
my favorite
jewelry.
Place.
See, your favorite. Mm-hmm. Now, I've never been a big jewelry person, but I will tell you, I've got my Seiko watch that is actually 44 years old. And they repair watches at Jewels on Hampton. They'll buy and sell jewelry at Jewels on Hampton. They'll help you with coin collecting at Jewels on Hampton. It is a great place to go if you're at all involved in jewelry. And Al has been in this business a long time. He knows what he's doing. Big time. So that's Jewels on Hampton, 4506 Hampton in the city. Great, great place to buy your jewelry. Okay, so back to the real world.
Back to the real world.
Let me say this to you, Steph. Let me even ask you this,
Go for it.
because I can tell you, here's something that most people know absolutely nothing about. And the first thing I'll ask it this way, and you're going to look at me like, what are you, crazy, Kason? You have any idea? You have any idea what Chevron deference is?
I know what Chevron is, but no.
Yeah. And I was going to say, look, if anybody knows what Chevron deference is, they've got to be a constitutional law professor, period, because nobody knows what it is. And frankly, most people would probably say, I don't want to know. But let me help you here. Let me help you here, because there's a way.
Help me out.
There's a way in which this is important. First of
Okay.
all, there is something called Project 2025. And that is an operation that includes, gee, what a surprise, Donald J. Trump and a lot of other crazy people who are out to tear down our government. And I say all the time, first of all, we have tens of thousands of people who work for our government, some of whom may find themselves not getting paid by the end of this week because of Michael Johnson and some other people in the House of Representatives. But let's put that aside for the moment. And let me say that there are these people who think that if we shut down all the agencies, that somehow the United States will work so well, because the agencies, and then sometimes they call it the deep state, which I don't even like to say, because it's first of all, it's not true. There is no deep state, and it is all nonsense, or as Joe Biden would say, malarkey. So the deal is that Project 25 wants to shut down all the agencies, fire everybody, and turn over all the decision making in the executive branch
To who?
to the dictator, to Donald. Now, in the first place, that's crazy. In the second place, and this is the worst part of it, those three people that he put on the Supreme Court are actually in favor of this. And what they want to do is they want to eliminate this Chevron deference. So here's what Chevron deference is. There is a case from 1984, so that's 40 years ago. And the funny thing is it involved the mother of Neil Gorsuch, who is a Supreme Court justice now, who's on the opposite side of this issue. And the issue is they want to take away from agencies their ability to make decisions about what happens in our life. And let me give you an example of where this is really important so that people could understand that this is not just some kind of weird constitutional law issue. For example, when 5G phones came out, there were things that had to be done with the towers to make 5G available to everybody. Do you have a 5G phone?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we all do.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the deal. In order to make sure that those towers were working properly, some of the towers were put up next to airports. And one of the things that the airports were concerned about, and everybody out here that could be listening to this would be concerned, is that the towers might interfere with the air traffic controllers, and somebody would be in trouble because their airplane would be coming down without the proper guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, easy to understand, right?
Correct.
Who has to make a decision about what should be done to the towers and to the airport controllers? Somebody's got to decide. And the thing about it is, we've got an FAA, Federal Aviation Agency, that handles the airports. And then we've got the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, that handles everything to do with our phones, with the cell towers, with this new technology. So who gets to tell us how we're going to do this? Because we want to make sure, number one, that the phones work, and that number two, that our airplanes land safely and that we don't end up crashed on the runway somewhere or worse. And so the problem is, how do we decide? Well, for 40 years, the government has operated under the understanding that came from the Supreme Court, which said that if the Congress does not put into law a very specific design for how the law should be implemented, then the agencies can make the decisions themselves. And when you think about it, how many Congress people do you think are experts on federal aviation issues?
None of them.
Okay.
So, and you would
Yeah.
think that those two, the FCC and the FAA, they would hold a, they need to collaborate,
Yeah, and they
communicate.
did. They did.
Okay.
They did. Yeah, they worked it out and they made sure that we're safe. And that's the point. They are the people who should be figuring out how to implement the laws from the executive branch, not some congressperson who, I mean, it could be George Santos for all we know. And then we'd be in real trouble with some guy that's lying about what they even know in the first place, or even lying about whether they went to school or not. I mean, these people are not the experts. They don't know what to do when it comes to airport towers or cell phone towers.
Right.
They don't know any of it. They need to be out of the way. The people who need to decide are the people who really know what's going on. Let them figure out how to work everything and fit that into the law in the proper way. Well, guess what? We've got 5 people at least, and maybe 6 on the Supreme Court who want to end this. And then we've got the 2025 Project people who want to shut down the agencies altogether. So you tell me, who is going to make the decisions that we count on, which are supposed to come from people with extreme expertise who can handle all kinds of technological problems and who can make sure that everything that we live with in our country is safe, all the way from clean air to healthy food to airports and cell phones, everything. We want it all to work properly and safely. And the problem is, these nuts want to turn all of this business back to people in Congress who, frankly, don't know necessarily what is supposed to be done. And then even worse than that, if they have to go out and get experts for this, now you've got them spending time on things where they don't even belong.
True.
We've got a system right now that works fabulously well.
It works.
It works. Our agencies work. The people who work for those agencies are hired based on civil service exams. They show that they know what they're doing, and then they get the job. And they're paid somewhere between, say, $45,000 and $95,000 a year, and they really never get wealthy. But on the other hand, they provide us service all the time because they want to make sure that the job gets done at a government level. And I know we have people out who think, oh my, these government people, they're just on the dole. They don't really care about us. They get holidays and they're just playing around, and they don't care one bit about what happens to us. They really are at worst, I'm sorry, at best, they're incompetent, and at worst, they're part of the deep state that's trying to destroy all of our private lives. And none of it is true. None of it. The only thing that's true is that we've got experts out here who are capable of making great decisions, and they have. And they've done it for 40 years under this Chevron deference business, because what they're doing, the deference part is that they're deferring to the agencies that have expertise.
Well, like they say, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah,
So.
well, it's not broken. And the people that are talking about this, they say it is. And by the way, I hate to tell you this, part of this 2025 project aimed at getting rid of these agencies wants to inject, instead of expertise, religious decisions into implementing our laws at the executive level. And I can't even understand for a minute how somebody could make a religious decision that would help the FAA and the FCC to decide where to put the towers so that the planes can land safely, unless they just want to pray for the planes to land properly. I don't know what they're doing, Steph. I just don't know.
That was a good one.
Yeah. I try.
That was a good one.
I try. Anyway, that's some of what is certainly happening today. We've got a Michigan primary tonight.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what Nikki Haley's numbers are against Donald Trump in Michigan. Nobody's talking about it, but I have a feeling. We'll see tomorrow. I could be wrong. I've been wrong. Both my brothers think I'm wrong about everything. Ira and Les think I don't know a thing. But I am going to say that I think that Nikki Haley's numbers tonight in Michigan could actually be pretty good. Maybe she won't win. Okay, I'll grant you. But I think she could beat 60-40. I mean, if she comes in tonight somewhere like 55-45 or...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like 54.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, that would be impressive. And one thing for sure, if Donald can't win in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and these are very highly suspect races right now for him, and that's
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at Mike. Mike just came in talking about no way.
No, I see it. Yeah, well, listen, my family's very good at deciding that I don't know what I'm talking about. They love me, sort of, but they're good. They speak up, and we're gonna see. But I'm very anxious to see what happens in Michigan. Okay, Michael says lucky to get 40%. Well, we're gonna see tonight. We're gonna see.
We'll see, Mike.
Yeah, but I want to say this. Joe Biden won by 150,000 votes in Michigan, and he's got a problem right now because of Israel. And I happen to believe that the right thing to do in the Middle East, and I've said this long before this crazy mess with Hamas this time, there's got to be a two-state solution. There's got to be. Because the people in the Middle East, the Palestinians, who were originally displaced because the Jews had to have a place to be, and they should have. They had to have a place to be. I mean, Europe had destroyed the Jews. So they had to have a place. Now, we've taken an awful long time in providing the Palestinians with what they should have, which is a decent place as well. How you're going to get the umpires in there to separate the people so that they don't kill each other, that's the issue. And I hope we do that. But here's the thing. Joe Biden, I have heard, it is rumored, is trying to come up with a ceasefire arrangement that would include the United States recognition of Palestine as a separate state. And I have to tell you, if he can find a way to do this without selling out the Jews, and I think he can do that, he will win Michigan. That's the question. Now, I don't know what he can do. We're going to find out what he can do. But people say, well, Joe Biden is somehow mentally deteriorated. Well, I think we're going to find out right now. Because if he comes up with a way to save the Palestinians, give them a state, save the Israelis from attacks by Palestinians to protect them, we could have a different world, and Joe Biden could get enormous credit for it. Yes, Michael, Trump loves Netanyahu. Netanyahu doesn't really love Trump. Netanyahu takes advantage of the fact that Trump is there for him. So right now, you've got Netanyahu on one side, you've got Biden on another side, and you've got a whole lot of American Arabs who are saying, fix this now. I just hope they fix it. Because if they fix it,
I do too.
If they fix it so the Jews can live safely and so the Palestinians can live safely and in good health and with some support from the world to help them. And let me say this, everybody knows that nobody wants the Palestinians because, you know, you listen to what Egypt said. Egypt said, if you allow these Palestinians into Egypt, we're going to drop our entire peace deal that we made 40 years ago because they just don't want the Palestinians. So, again, can Joe Biden do this? Well, I'll tell you this. If he does, it will be incredibly impressive.
True.
Anyway, we're out of time, Steph. You got a last word?
Everybody have a wonderful evening.
Okay. Well, I have a last word.
We'll see you tomorrow.
My last word is Wenty's, St. Louis Suit Company, and Jules on Hampton. And I'm Mark Kaysen with Steph. This is Showdown. Good night.
Good night.